Visit Stormux.org, where you can learn more about our project and join the mailing list. Welcome to the first edition of the Stormux podcast. Because, it's fun to do things half prepared, and for the moment, this one may be a little bit rough, but as we go along, we'll polish out the process, and, things can only get better from here, right?
Absolutely. You got to add the heavy metal music later,
Oh, yes, and it's coming. So the part we're recording right now, I can go back and chop stuff out and add things in. I'm working on a nifty little sock script to help out with that.
Socks is awesome. Do you remember back in the day when we had the background music for Altareon was sock scripts?
I believe it still is. Actually, all the mud stuff is heavily socks based.
No, the background music has long since gone.
Are you sure there's no BGM command still?
On the 1010 client?
It's been years since I played there, but
I'm
yeah.
The last time I played,
99%
I didn't see
positive
it.
that it's gone.
I think the last I did with Alter was regarding background music was slightly after I found End of Time mod, and it has an awesome background music setup in it. It actually works without any of the weird bugs. But yeah, before we get into all that stuff, not that we'll have the same crew with every podcast, because trying to get everybody together to record all at the same time in the same universe at the same place is impossible. But we'll do a slight introduction since this is the first podcast. I'm Billy, aka Storm. I'm responsible for Stormux and do a lot of the software development. And I guess we can go in alphabetical order. So Hunter?
I'm Hunter. I've been around the Stormux project since 2018 when I was working at F123 Lite as an intern. Let's see, what can you blame me for? You can blame me for trying to make Sway better with not necessarily Orca, but on the whole, just making things a bit more smooth. I did the speech dispatcher patches for Tux Type.
And all that work on the i38 here recently for Sway.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, fixing the startup and whatnot. There's another bug that I need to go fix, so I might as well put it on record. And if you reload your configuration, I think the semantics of reload are different for Sway than i38, so you get duplicate sounds. So if you reload it once, you get the window sounds twice. If you reload it a second time, you get the window sounds three times.
Okay, Tony, you're up.
Okay, I'm Tony. I don't really have a really good moniker. I do have a few, but we won't go into those. I started here. I've known Billy for a long time without really knowing that I knew him, because I was on the Vinix mailing list, and the first I ever heard his voice was very difficult to hear over the music, which was really good, by the way. It was he was showing us all a track that he'd made, and it was a thing called Darkness Forevermore, and it was really rough, but it was really awesome too, and but the voice was buried, and it was funny as and so I remember hearing that, and I'd seen many posts by him. I would later find out that he is indeed, I got a Raspberry Pi and got discovered by the former, I guess he's still part of F123, but, F123 Lite is no more. But he told me what I could do with the Pi, and because I was on another list, and that really wasn't giving me much help on what I could do with this thing. They were only saying what we used to do about 20 years ago. It's like, oh, that's nice, but I have this thing. What do I do with it today? Well, that's when I was directed over here, and I met Billy and the crew, and I became their resident brick thrower and beta tester, and I still do that today. My brick throwing arm is as good as ever, and my beta testing hand is doing pretty well. I did actually, and I don't, I not to brag because I'm sure we would have all found it. And eventually, I discovered the Toby Doom project. It was already in full swing and all of that, and turned everybody onto that. And boy, we just pretty much haven't left it alone since. So that was my thing that we can be blamed for.
I would. I would argue as an organization, we eat our own dog food, so we brick throw and beta test everything.
Yeah, and that's.
But it's always good to get a third and second or third opinion to make sure that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Also, Tony, you run a Stormux server, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do, and So I do run one of those, and I'm getting ready to put a Murmur server on it. I haven't done so yet, but I'm definitely going to do that. And it runs Navidrome, and Billy showed me how to do that, and it was pretty cool, and still is. I do use it and show people how I can play my stuff from home on my phone, and they just, oh, I want to do that. So, well, now you know how. Stormux.org, buddy.
I just fixed a bug with the convert to server part of Configure Stormux. It was asking you to upload an SSH key and then freezing.
Ooh.
So that wasn't very nice. But so I took out the wormhole SSH invite command, which was causing it to freeze up. And this leaves you free to put your own keys on there using SSH copy ID or wormhole or rsync or whatever your heart's desire. And I figure that if people are going to be running a server, they at least need to be able to do the research to figure out how SSH keys work and all that sort of stuff. Stormux servers, if you use the convert script, I mean, you can do it manually, but if you use the convert script, it requires you to have an SSH key because that's the only method of logging in, which, while not 1,000% secure, is better than a lot of other methods.
So the new version will... Oh, go ahead, Hunter.
I need to test this, but do you at least get a shot to... If SSH keys are required right off the rip, then how are you going to be able to SSH copy ID if you're going to get locked out because you don't have an SSH key to put in?
Before it converts the server, you have to have the key in place. There is a lot of fail-safes. In fact, there's a really dire warning that you probably don't want to do this, but if you insist...
Because Stormux was designed as a
personal
desktop
computer
operating system.
Yeah. Well, personal computer because you don't have to have a desktop. You can do command line. But yeah, it's technically for, personal use. You can install a desktop. You can use it just from the command line if you want to. I tried to leave it as configurable as possible. It's pretty close to the stock Arch Linux ARM image, just with a screen reader and some useful tools like Wormhole.
And useful boot configurations for those of us who want to boot off not an SSD. I had tried the alarm base image to see how different it was, and other than the different boot system that they use, it's pretty stock, all things considered.
Yeah, there are some things that you don't have to do on Stormux that you do have to do on the vanilla image, like set up the pacman mirror lists and initialize the keyring and all that sort of stuff. That's taken care of for you already.
Okay.
So next month is October, and since we managed to
like to call it
procrastinate,
Rocktober here.
Yes, Beerfest.
Indeed, yes. Your swimming pool is being filled even as we speak.
But for October, there will be a new game available from Storm Games called Zombo. And I will make an actual announcement about that probably on October 1st or thereabouts. But if you're getting early access to this, you can have access to the game. Just send me an email and I will send you instructions. Most people that will be hearing this before October 1st have my email address, so that should be easy enough to do.
And I'm pretty sure those of us hearing this before October 1st have a copy of the game already.
Most of us do. There is one person who was kind of a slacker and hasn't even tried it yet.
Yeah, there certainly is. I think I know him. And yes, he actually does use Slackware. So
Yeah,
he
he's
must be a
technically
slacker. Sure
certainly.
And he wants to try it out as soon as possible, and now he will.
I will say that I didn't do much of the development side, but I had some fun experiences trying to get it to work on Windows.
I got it to work on Windows by downgrading Python from, I think it's like 3.8.
Wow.
It's nice to see how up to date and, chop they really are.
Well, in the defense, Python 3.12 breaks everything.
That's why. That's weird. It worked perfectly fine on 3.11, but maybe you did some testing after it. But after my testing,
it probably would work with 3.11, but there was some other stuff that I was testing that broke things like Python WX, I think it was. There was something that I had to downgrade all the way to like 8 for 3.8. But now everything works, so I'm happy. My VM is happy. Yep, because I don't have Windows natively installed on any device here now. I've got the VM, which does everything I need. So I rescued the poor laptop.
Yay!
It's now happy again.
Yeah. If necessary, I do break out the laptop, but those cases are few and far between. I did consider trying out the x86 script for Stormux to see how that works out, but considering all the hardware problems I've had with that laptop, I really don't want to screw with it anymore.
I need to do that. Now that I have this laptop that is going to be, well, there's more news coming actually, but yeah, I could probably try that out on this laptop that I'll just reinstall yet again and try the Stormux script. I just threw Arch on there. And was in the process of setting everything up manually, but if I do it this way, it might make it go faster or slower, depending on how many bugs I find.
Yep.
So, interesting news. The laptop made me remember it. The Patreon and Ko-Fi pages have been updated. There are new options. There are 2 tiers on Patreon, a $3 a month and a $5 a month. And there is one option on the Ko-Fi because it already has a $3 a month by default. You can click that. And so basically what happens is anyone on Patreon or Ko-Fi who donates will receive the podcast early. So we're going to try to do this on the 1st of every month. The releases come out. So we'll record it the previous month and then release it to the public at large on the 1st of the month. But once it's finished, preferably more than 6 days before publishing time, all Patreon and Ko-Fi people will have access to it. So there's a bit of an incentive. Also, with the Stormux laptop project, which is on hold indefinitely, but if it ever gets off the ground, donators in the $5 tier will receive a $100 discount on the final price. And there's my shameless advertising for this podcast.
And it's okay because we know it's gonna rock. We just do.
We do.
We've seen the future, and the future, whenever it gets here, is good.
Yeah.
And we've actually watched the 3D printer vicariously.
Yes.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's not very blind friendly, so I'm at the whim of my help, which lacks motivation at times. But I have to light a fire
fair,
in them.
In his defense, he is in school.
Yes, final year of school, working on a hybrid diploma / associate's degree. So there's a lot of work there. So I don't pressure him too much.
I kind of wish I had that in high school.
Yeah, it's a really neat program. You have to apply for it. He applied. They accepted him, and he's on his final year. So, yeah, gonna have someone graduating in my household this May.
Nice.
Kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one more thing that we'll cover. This one might end up being just a tiny bit short, but it is the first one, and it is kind of last minute. So, in gaming news, which we had already mentioned a little bit, but there is the new release of Toby Doom 7.5. It is available in Linux Game Manager, and has had rigorous testing. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm gonna go play some more after we're done here. Yeah. At least after you add the one little thing that we talked about.
Yeah, but it is available, and there have been lots of changes. So the way the menu system works, it's very customizable now, especially in the custom games. Operation MDK, or not Operation MDK, Project Brutality. I was playing Operation MDK earlier and got a little tied up in that, but Project Brutality is actually included in the Linux version with Linux Game Manager, and there's you can customize your death matches, set those up, host them, all that sort of stuff. Maybe we'll do a playthrough of that at some point and show off the new features.
It'll be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, maybe we should do a death match, all of us together.
We should.
Like we did on my PeerTube.
Yeah, the 4-hour.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
I think in that regard, Storm switched his things to YouTube, but for the time being, I'm going to keep my PeerTube up because people are relying on it. To my knowledge, there are links. So long as I can keep the PeerTube running, those will be available. If there comes a time where PeerTube breaks or I run out of disk space, I'll have to reevaluate. Maybe there will be a platform change, but for the foreseeable future, I'm going to try to keep those links up.
Yeah, I am switching to the YouTube platform simply because PeerTube was refusing to run on the Arch64 system. I had it running on my Pi, and I don't think it's the fault of PeerTube. I think it's something weird with Node.js on Arch64, because the latest version's working fine on x86 64, but not on the Pi. But with the new YouTube channel, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. It seems like it could be cool. Just kind of sucks using a proprietary platform, but there you go.
Yeah, I don't really know about any streaming PeerTube competitive project. Well, I guess there's Media Goblin, but I don't think Media Goblin meets our needs. We need something that federates and you can live stream to.
Well, and I have to say that the whole getting 1,000 subscribers and YouTube paying you for content is pretty tempting. So it'd be a way for people to contribute just by watching videos and helping out the project.
Have you considered doing value for value with the podcast episodes?
I like to keep all Stormix stuff free of charge, just because.
Yeah, it's basically a scheme where people pay if they get value out of it, they pay. But there's a special system for podcasts called IPFS podcasting, and they have the podcast index that I showed you earlier has a value tag that you can put on your RSS feeds so that people can pay in Bitcoin, I believe, which would be interesting because not all people can use Stripe, PayPal, or whatever for various reasons.
Oh, yeah, that's something I'll have to look into.
Yeah. I do it as a host. I get paid for hosting some podcasts on IPFS.
Oh, nice.
Which is why I shill it really hard, and which is why I also pushed for it to put our audio game stuff on there. Because it's easy. No, I don't get paid for that. Full disclosure, I do not get paid for that. But I found it really reliable, except when our provider, the gateway, decides to have a bad day. Which, considering it's been up for a year, is pretty rare.
Yeah, it did good. And the problem didn't last very long. I think they figured out the error of their ways and fixed it. So all's well that ends well, correct?
Yep. They plugged it back.
But on the whole, I find IPFS to be a reliable and interesting thing to build ideas on top of.
IPFS is pretty awesome. But yeah, so with Stormux, my plan is to keep everything free, or at least freely accessible. The podcast, of course, will be available to everyone. Just, some people may get it early. But you never know the financial situation of people who are interested. And, even here in the U.S., there are people who can't put food on the table and pay for cool stuff all at the same time. And in other countries as well. So my idea is to go completely off of donations, or if I can actually earn something from YouTube, that. And if I get enough money to, instead of buying myself a yacht or something like that, I'll try to hire in extra developers, more people to work on Stormux projects. I just need to be able to pay my bills every month and buy Stormux related stuff, SD cards, the latest Raspberry Pi stuff to make sure it works there. Basic stuff, and then the rest of it
for ribeyes.
Oh yeah, for ribeyes. Well, that's a necessity. I mean, do you even have to mention those?
I do, because I'm hungry. I'm hungry for one. Yeah, coffee and ribeyes.
And Mountain Dew.
A ribeye shaped a coffee cup made out of ribeye that you can just drink coffee and then eat the cup.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, with a bone handle.
Do you guys see the great ideas that come from the Stormux project? I mean,
they come right from my center.
It's awe-inspiring.
It's beautiful. It is. It's the best. The best.
What would you do about the sauce, though? You'd want to not cover your hand up in sauce, because then your keyboard would get jammed eventually.
You just lick the sauce.
Just put one of those keyboard covers on there.
Yeah. A cat.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I better not go there. Wow. I am getting the munchies, folks. Look out.
Okay, so I think this is, unless anybody else has anything to discuss, this is probably a good chopping point for the first one. We covered a lot of things. There's a lot of news out there. And
we're holding back on a few things so that we can cover them later. I'm thinking of one of them right
we
now.
can't do it all in the first podcast because then what would we talk about in the next one?
Exactly.
Or the next one after that.
Or the one after that. And
also, I can't do recordings of stuff right now inside the pod. I mean, I guess I could go back and splice it in, but yeah, we need to show off some games and do some cool stuff like that too. But you know, there's room for growth.
Indeed, there is.
Okay, so thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take it easy.